Did you discuss with her the investigation of Stephanie Lowe's disappearance?
I don't remember.
Did you lie to your mother about anything concerning Stephanie Lowe at that time in early 2011?
Yes, I did.
When contacted by Detective Buckner, well, strike that. Actually, you would have lied to your mother really about the Stephanie Lowe investigation for a period of approximately 2 years, plus or minus. Do I have that about right?
Yes.
You were contacted by Detective Buckner on this early 2000 date, and he wanted to know some information about the Stephanie Lowe disappearance, right? That was the purpose of calling.
I don't remember, but that's likely why.
Why else would a detective at that point in time in early 2011 be contacting you from the Wausau Police Department? Why else? Any other reason?
No.
Okay. And during that conversation with Detective Buckner, you told him that Torgerson had been at Breakaway Bar on Saturday night, October 9, 2010, right?
I'm not sure if that's what I told Buckner.
Okay. Well, did you discuss with Detective Buckner the weekend of Stephanie Lowe's disappearance when he called?
I don't remember.
What else did you talk to him about then? Did you and Buckner, did Detective Buckner have some type of other relationship or what? Help me out.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll rephrase the question. Can you recall what else you might have talked about?
I cannot recall the specific details of our conversation.
I understand, but you did talk about the weekend of October 9th and 10th, right?
We must have.
Yeah. And you don't remember if the detective said, "Where was your boyfriend that night?" You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
So if Detective Buckner would say that Andrea recalled Torgerson had been out at the Breakaway Bar on Saturday of the weekend of Lowe's disappearance, you don't remember saying that. I just want to be clear.
I don't remember saying the exact words. I would have to refresh my memory from my statements.
Okay. Well, you never signed any statement with Detective Buckner because this was over the telephone, right?
Right.
You never wrote anything out, right, to Detective Buckner in this statement?
No.
Did you tell the Detective Buckner want to know about a guy by the name of Rich?
I don't remember, but he might have.
Did you tell Detective Buckner Andrea believed he had been with his friend Rich?
That sounds like it could be correct.
And did you tell Detective Buckner that you thought Rich was from Alabama, correct?
Rich is from Alabama. I don't know if that's what I said to Detective Buckner, though.
Okay. But if you did, that would have been true, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you tell the detective that Rich returned to California or Alabama since you knew him? Did you tell the detective that?
Are you saying after the fact? Or what are you asking me? Did he return to Alabama or California before or after the incident?
After the incident. I think Detective Buckner was talking about the incident, right? We've established that.
Okay.
And did you tell Detective Buckner, Andrea thought Rich may be from Alabama or California and was no longer in the area and have returned to either Alabama or California? Did you tell Buckner that?
I don't remember.
Now, we do know for a fact, though, that Rich actually went to California, right?
Correct.
We know you knew he was from Alabama because that's where you met him the previous summer, right?
Correct.
Now, did you buy on your debit card or purchase on your debit card through the River Valley Bank a ticket for Rich to travel to California 3 weeks after Stephanie Lowe's disappearance?
Yes, I believe it was on my credit card.
Did you tell Detective Buckner that when Rich was discussed?
I don't remember.
Have you ever told anybody that?
That it was on my debit card?
Yes, that's my question.
I don't remember.
We've established through Mr. DeFore's direct examination that it was not abnormal for Chris to be out all night and not come home until 7 a.m., right?
Correct.
And do you remember actually telling Detective Buckner that on your first meeting with law enforcement? Don't you remember?
I don't remember.
Do you remember telling Buckner on this first law enforcement meeting that you stayed that night at Torgerson's Purvey Street apartment with his children? You remember that?
Yes.
And that would have been true, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember telling Detective Buckner, Torgerson never returned there after being out at the bar, but spent the night at your condo on White Spire Road? Did you tell Detective Buckner that in early 2011?
I don't remember.
Just so I'm clear, then, you didn't say Torgerson did not return to his apartment after being out at the bar. Instead, Torgerson had returned to Andrea's condo, 7410 White Spire Road. Don't remember saying that?
I don't remember.
If you did, that wouldn't have been true, right?
Can you repeat that again?
If you did say that, it would have been a lie, correct?
If I said that he returned to White Spire?
And spent the night at your condo. You knew that not to be true, correct?
Correct.
Did you tell Detective Buckner, we're still on interview number 1, that Torgerson called you for directions to your mother's cabin? Remember telling him that?
I do not remember telling him that.
Let me just ask you something. In preparation for your testimony today in this jury trial, did you review any of your reports to law enforcement? Any reports concerning your statements to law enforcement?
You mean, did I read over my statement after it was typed up, official?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll rephrase the question.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll ask this. What police reports have you reviewed in preparation for your testimony, if any?
I haven't reviewed any police reports for my testimony, but I've had read my statements that I've made that have been all typed up, but that was some time ago.
So statements that you've made have been typed up, is that what you said?
Yes.
Did you sign any statements?
I don't remember if I've signed them.
Did you write any statements out in your own handwriting?
I do not think so.
So is what you reviewed reports authored by people like Detective Buckner, Detective Holtz, and Lieutenant Kolb that summarize their interviews with you? Is that what you're talking about?
That sounds correct.
But you don't remember interviewing the one we're talking about, Buckner on March 8, 2011. That one you don't remember reviewing?
No, I do not remember reviewing that one.
So again, I just got to be sure. You did not tell Detective Buckner Torgerson called her sometime Sunday morning, 10:10 to tell her he would take the boat to her mother's cabin that day. Did you tell her that? Tell him that?
I don't remember.
Did you tell him that you then gave him directions to the condo?
I don't remember.
Did he ask you whether you accompanied Torgerson to the condominium on the morning of October, to the cabin in Wabeno on the morning of October 10? Did he ask you that?
Unfortunately, I do not remember that interview since it was so long ago.
Let's see if we can establish this. Did you tell Detective Buckner in your initial interview, did you tell him that you actually went up to the cabin in another car with Torgerson or not?
I don't remember that interview.
Did you lie about anything to Detective Buckner in that early 2011 interview?
I'm sure I did because that was before I had told the truth.
So this didn't happen. When asked why she did not accompany Torgerson Andrea said it was easier for her to stay and watch the children rather than getting all of them loaded into the car for the trip. You don't remember that dialogue?
I remember that statement, yes.
All right. You did tell that to Buckner in early 2011, right?
I don't know if it was Buckner, but it sounds like a familiar statement that I made.
Truth or lie?
It was a lie.
Do you remember discussing with Detective Buckner in early 2011 about the knife found by your mother in the boat?
Vaguely.
Your Honor, if we can approach a minute. Before the next, I suspect will be.
Question I'm going to ask you is, it's about the knife that your mother recovered. You with me?
Yes.
I'm not asking you what anybody told you. I'm asking what you knew from your eyes. How's that? Okay, what you saw. Okay, you with me?
Okay.
Was that, did you see that knife being used for any purpose in the boat?
Yes, if it's the same knife, when we had gone on a boat trip, it was a knife that was used to like cut one of the gas lines because we were having trouble with the gas in the boat.
You didn't discuss with Detective Cord Buckner in early 2011 anything else about any other knives. You didn't volunteer any information, correct?
I don't remember.
Well, did you tell him? Did you tell Detective Buckner, I think Chris Torgerson killed Stephanie Lowe with a knife from my set? Did you tell him that?
No, I did not.
Of course, he didn't ask, did he?
I don't remember.
This very first interview with Detective Buckner, you would have discussed the contents of that interview with Mr. Torgerson, correct?
I don't remember, but I likely did.
Did you tell the police that? That you were relaying information to Torgerson?
No.
Now, let's see if we can remember this. So we've talked about a call from Detective Buckner so far, right?
Yes.
Do you remember 2 days after that telephone call, we don't know the date, sometime, you agree with me, in early 2011, do you remember 2 days after that was the first time you'd make a physical appearance at the Wausau Police Department to talk about this case? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Okay. So March 10, 2011 doesn't sound right.
I can't remember.
Okay. Do you remember that the first Wausau Police Department officer you looked at eye to eye about this case was the one and same fellow you talked to on the phone, Detective Cord Buckner? Remember that?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Do you remember during the course of this March 10, 2011 meeting, let's see if this refreshes your recollection. It would have been at this time you actually went with your mother, and you guys were asked if you would consent to searches of the cabin and searches of your boat. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
And do you remember your mother with regards to search of the area around her cabin, her land? Do you remember your mom saying, no problem? Do you remember that?
I don't remember, but I'm sure that's what she said.
Well, she gave consent, right?
Yes.
And then when the police asked you, see, you owned the boat, right?
Yes.
1979 Skeeter with Mercury outboard, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this was the boat that you testified to was towed up to the cabin with you as an escort, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember in this second interaction with law enforcement, first in person, that Detective Buckner asked you, hey, we'd like to search that boat. Do you consent to that? Do you remember that?
I don't, but I must have, because I believe they searched it.
So you don't recall signing a Wausau Police Department permission to search form for your boat on March 10, 2011? You don't remember that?
I remember signing a consent form now, but I don't remember the date.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach? Ms. Wadinski, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 112 and ask you if you would take a look at that.
Yes.
Is that your signature on that form?
Yes, it is.
And it is indeed, do you recall that it is a consent to search your Skeeter boat?
Yes.
What's the date that you consented?
March 10th, 2011.
Does that refresh your recollection as to the time frame of these first two interactions with law enforcement?
Not really.
So at that point in time, by consenting to the search of your boat, you were making an effort to cooperate with law enforcement, right?
Yes.
And you learned that the Wausau Police Department was going to go up to your mother's cabin, search her property, and search the boat, right?
Yes.
Detective Buckner looked you in the eye and told you that, right?
I don't recall the exact interaction.
Were you in the same room?
If it was on the same day that we signed the consent, then we probably were in the same room.
Did you tell Detective Buckner on that March 10, 2011 date anything about what you testified to today?
No, I did not.
Did he ask you any specific questions about that weekend, if you remember?
I don't remember, but I'm sure he did.
Would you have told him that, provided him truthful information or false information on that day?
False information.
Before I forget, I'm going to move 112 in.
No objection, Your Honor.
112 is received.
You have water, ma'am?
Yes.
May I approach to retrieve? Do you remember that the next time you talk to law enforcement, you see the consent was March 10, 2011 to search the boat, was roughly about 2 months later, May 2011, you remember that?
I don't remember that date.
Do you remember, not the specific date, May 3, you don't remember the date, do you remember it was a couple of months after the boat search? Remember that?
Yes,
Okay. So we're still in 2011, right?
yes,
We're at what, about just shy of 7 months after Miss Lowe disappeared, correct?
yes,
Do you remember this contact was again by telephone with Detective Buckner? Do you remember that?
no, I do not.
Do you remember if you don't remember whether it was in person or by phone, do you remember Detective Buckner saying, look, we want to do some more with your boat. Is it still okay to handle it? Do you remember that?
I don't.
Do you remember Detective Buckner telling you we're going to take the boat to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to test for evidence that helps solve this helps to hopefully solve the Stephanie Lowe disappearance? You don't remember that?
Vaguely. I don't remember the exact date or the exact conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm not asking you about the exact date or the exact conversation. I think we've narrowed it that it's about 7 months after Stephanie Lowe disappeared. You with me there?
Yes,
And all I'm asking you, not about exact conversation. Do you remember him saying, we need your continued consent now to move the boat to the crime lab? Do you remember that contact? Or something along those lines?
I remember something along those lines,
Do
yes.
you remember telling Detective Buckner, you've got no problem with me, I consent, I continue to consent, right?
Yes,
And do you remember about that same time, law enforcement also was getting your mother's consent to continue their investigation up at her property in Lavino? You remember that generally?
generally.
Did you tell Detective Buckner on or about May 2011 date what you told this jury today?
No, I did not.
Did you tell him truths? Well, wait, you consented to the continued handling of the boat, processing of the boat, right?
Yes,
Did you otherwise tell Detective Cord Buckner on this May 2011 date truth or lies?
lies.
Up to this point in time, had you told your mother truth or lies?
Lies.
But you reported to Torgerson by phone that the police seized your boat, right?
Yes,
Do you remember about then you got a break from interviews for about 6 months, and you weren't recontacted by law enforcement until November 2011. Do you remember that?
roughly.
So far, the only law enforcement officer you've dealt with in this investigation is Detective Cord Buckner. Fair?
That sounds accurate.
One meeting and a couple of phone calls we've established so far, right?
Yes,
Do you remember there being a second meeting in the Wausau Police Department on 6:30 p.m. on November 2, 2011 with your mom accompanying you? Do you remember that?
Counsel, I believe that was by phone, if you look at the report. It says via telephone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Counsel's right. So far we've talked about only one in-person visit with Detective Buckner and a couple of phone calls, right?
yes,
Last phone call we talked about was May 2011, right?
yes,
And then I said 6 months, you didn't get any contact, brings us to about November 2011, right?
yes,
And then I mistakenly said you had a second trip into the Wausau Police Department. That's not true. Your first contact in November 2011 would have been by Detective Buckner by telephone. Do you remember that?
No, I do not.
All right. Do you remember him calling you after this 6-month period of time had elapsed and wanted to ask you directions? What are your directions to the cabin in Wabeno from Wausau? Do you remember that dialogue?
It sounds familiar.
Do you remember you told the detective in this phone call, well, I'll give you the directions from Anago, right on 64 to County Highway T. Remember that?
That sounds like the normal route we take.
Left on the County Highway T, you told him?
I don't remember exactly.
Told him you take T to State Highway 32, right?
Yes,
Follow 32 to, I think, Old 32 right before the casino, right?
it sounds accurate.
You do remember on the phone with Detective Buckner saying, this is how I would get there, right?
Yes, that was our normal route.
And Detective Buckner asked you, did we not? Well, did you provide those directions to Chris Torgerson orally? By word of mouth. He asked you that, right?
I don't remember.
Do you remember in this phone call where you're given Detective Buckner directions to Wabeno that you said, look, Chris didn't need to know him. I took him up there. You didn't tell Buckner that, right?
No, I did not.
Detective. And you don't remember being specifically asked whether you provided those directions verbally. You don't remember.
I don't remember.
You didn't say, to cause him to say, Andrea believed she had provided verbal directions rather than written directions. Did you say that?
I don't remember the exact statement.
Well, did you tell Detective Buckner in this phone call, November 2011, truth or lies?
It was likely lies.
You certainly didn't talk to him in this phone call anything close to consistent with your jury trial testimony, correct?
Correct.
So far you've had, by my count, 4 contacts with law enforcement, correct?
I didn't count them, but that sounds correct.
Have you told the truth yet?
Not within those contacts that you mentioned.
Remember 5 days after you talked to Detective Buckner on the phone about directions to Wabeno, he and another detective paid you a visit at your address then on Charles Street. You remember that?
I do not remember that.
Okay, let's try this. The woman seated at counsel table between Miss Ayala and Mr. DeFore is Detective Jennifer Holtz, right?
Yes.
You know her well.
Yes.
You have been communicating with her during the course of the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Yes.
So let's see if you can help me out by getting a timeline. When you first, did you know Detective Holtz? You didn't know her before this investigation, right?
Correct.
Do you recall the first time you met Detective Holtz? It would have been when she walked up to your residence with Detective Buckner on Charles Street in the fall of 2011. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember the exact date, and I don't remember that she was with Buckner.
Okay. Well, do you remember detectives coming to your home on Charles Street in the fall of 2011? Whoever.
Yes.
Do you remember that on that visit, the detectives wanted Torgerson's shoes? Remember that?
Yes.
All right. This contact now starting to ring a bell?
A little.
Who came over to the house that day? Don't remember? Which detectives?
I remember it was Detective Jennifer Holes for sure. I do not remember the male though, if it was Buckner or if it was Detective Kolb.
I think he might have been lieutenant by that time though. Okay, so it's either Detective Buckner or Lieutenant Cole who came with Detective Holtz, right?
Yes.
All right. And did you turn over the shoes?
I believe I did that day, yes.
And actually, they were interested in a cell phone there too, right?
I don't remember.
I mean, when police throughout this investigation, Ms. Wadinski, asked you to turn over things from your residence related to it, you never, ever objected, correct?
I don't think so.
And you remember on this visit to your home about the shoes, that police told you, hey, earlier in the day, we interviewed Torgerson. Remember that?
No, I do not.
Do you remember talking with law enforcement on the shoe visit, the day they wanted the shoes, about it being strange that Torgerson had failed to mention to the police that he took the boat up north the morning Miss Lowe disappeared? Remember talking to law enforcement about that?
I do not.
So you do not remember agreeing that it was strange that Torgerson had left out any mention of taking a boat to Urbino the morning after Lowe's disappearance. You don't remember saying that?
I don't remember my exact statement, no.
Well, do you remember, what did you say about the trip to Urbino by Torgerson during the shoe visit? Anything?
I don't remember.
If you would have said anything, would it have been a truth or a lie?
A lie.
Do you remember during the course of that visit for the shoes on November 7, 2011, telling the detectives that you thought that Torgerson tells lies?
I don't remember that.
You didn't state that she is finding out that Torgerson has lied to her numerous times throughout their relationship? You don't remember saying that?
I don't remember saying that.
But that would have been true, right?
Yes.
Do you remember telling the detectives that your boat was parked at your condo? We're still on the shoe visit, okay? Remember telling them that on that date?
I don't remember telling them that, but that is where my boat was parked.
Did you tell the detectives on the date they came and seized the shoes that Torgerson took it up to the Wapino cabin the morning of October 10, 2010? Did you tell them that?
I don't remember.
But if you would have, that would have been true, right?
Yes.
In this interview, did you tell the detectives anything consistent? No, strike that. Did you tell the detectives in this interview that you actually were the lead car up to the cabin?
No.
I'm talking about on the morning of October 10, 2010.
No.
Do you remember them at least talking to you about what was going on with the going up to the cabin with the boat?
Vaguely.
Well, that was kind of a repeated theme of law enforcement early on with what's with Torgerson taking the boat up north, wasn't it? Really?
Yes.
And you, at least on the dates we've talked about so far, we're on the fifth in number. You never told the truth about that, right?
Correct.
Do you recall again being asked, how did Torgerson get directions to the cabin?
I don't remember that.
Do you recall saying you believe they were probably given by phone?
I don't remember that.
Did you ever tell detectives in this investigation that you gave Torgerson directions by phone to the cabin?
I don't remember.
If you would that have been truth or lie?
Lie.
So is it, I mean, I'm going to keep going through a few things, but you really don't remember what you said to police in 2011, right? That's fair.
In 2011, yeah, that would be fair.
All you can say is it was never true.
Yes.
Do you remember when they came over to get the shoes, that they scheduled an appointment with you for an in-person interview at the Wausau Police Department 2 days later on November 9, 2011?
I don't remember that.
What's your recollection like of the middle of the night, early morning of October 10, 2010, about which you testified today? Your recollection, what is it, good or bad or average?
I would say it's good.
We've been talking so far about months after that period of time, correct?
Correct.
Not so good, right?
Correct.
You remember your second visit to the Wausau Police Department being on November 9, 2011, approximately dinner time with Detectives Holtz and Buckner.
I do not remember that exact interview.
You knew you were being called in, or police were visiting you, concerning nothing other than the Stephanie Lowe investigation, right?
Correct.
You had nothing else, no other dealings with the Wausau Police Department.
Correct.
You never been in trouble in your life.
That's right.
Do you remember November being a pretty busy month? We've already talked about 2 dates. This is the third. Do you remember that being a busy month for you? Before Thanksgiving, police just continually talking to you about the Miss Lowe investigation? Do you remember that?
It sounds familiar, yes.
I mean, every time you communicated with law enforcement by telephone, that had to be significant to you, right?
Yes.
Every time you would have talked with law enforcement at your residence, that was significant to you, right?
Yes.
And I got to imagine every time you were summoned in to the Wausau Police Department to be interviewed, it was pretty significant to you, right?
Yes.
So let's see if we can recollect the second time you were summoned in November 2011, okay?
Okay.
You think I'm okay on that date, that November was pretty busy?
Yes.
So we're still roughly, now we're about a year and another month after Miss Lowe disappeared, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember the second time, you don't remember, was Jennifer Holtz, Detective Jennifer Holtz, pretty much consistently involved in the investigation since the last communication we talked about?
Yes.
And she'd be joined on occasion by Detective Buckner or Lieutenant Cole, correct?
Yes.
And do you remember when you walked in November around dinner time with Detective Holtz and Buckner, that you asked whether there was evidence Torgerson was involved in Stephanie Lowe's death? Did you ask that question?
I don't remember.
Would that have been a question you would have wanted the answer to back in November 2011?
Probably not.
Because you already knew, right?
Yes.
So it's not probably not. For sure you wouldn't. If you asked that question, it would have been bogus. You were just fooling people. You already knew, right?
Yes, I did know.
Do you remember telling Detective Holtz and Buckner in this November 2011 dinner time interview there was nothing unusual about the weekend Miss Lowe disappeared?
I don't remember those specific words.
Do you remember this? Let's see if we can get away from specific words. Do you remember saying to the detectives, strike that, this interview in November 2011, your second visit to the department, first with Detective Holtz, remember this being the one where finally they're going to get into some, law enforcement's going to get into some detail, going to get into some meat about the Miss Lowe investigation. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I would necessarily remember it that way.
How would you remember it? Help me out then.
As an interview?
But a little bit, yeah, maybe I had the wrong description. A little bit more in-depth than the past, right?
Yes, a little more in depth than the past.
Okay. So now you're with me, you kind of remember this first in-depth interview?
A little, yes.
Okay. A little? Did you say?
Yes.
Okay. Well, your first in-depth interview, would that have been one of the incident reports of Wausau Police Department about that in-depth interview that you would have reviewed preparatory to your testimony, or no? You understand my question?
Yes, but I didn't review all of my statements prior to today. Like, I didn't review them like within the last week or anything.
Did you tell the detectives in what we'll now label this first in-depth interview? You with me?
Yes?
Did you tell the detectives that Torgerson alone took the boat up north while you had the kids, including your son who begins with the first letter T? You remember that?
It sounds familiar, but I can't say it's 100% accurate.
What I'm saying or what you said?
The statement doesn't sound, it sounds familiar, but I can't say that those were the exact words.
In your first in-depth interview, did you discuss whether you went up north with the boat with Torgerson?
I'm sure I did.
Did you tell the truth or did you lie?
I lied.
And you said, I didn't go, I was with the kids, right?
That sounds correct, yes.
And do you remember being asked by the detectives, Holtz and Buckner, when you saw Torgerson on October 9th and 10th, 2010, And you said you know for sure you didn't see him until October 10th, right?
I don't remember that piece.
Well, actually, if you would have said that, that's true. You didn't see him until Sunday, October 10th, after he went out the previous night, right?
Correct, yes.
So that actually would have been true if you would have said that, right? Would have been technically true. I know for sure you did not see Torgerson until the next day, 10/10/10, right?
No, I saw him the evening before he was going out.
I mean after that. Did you see him in the middle of the night? Did they ask you that?
I don't remember if they asked me that.
Well, did you tell the detectives in this November 9, 2011 interview, dinner time, first in-depth, did you tell them the things that you told this jury today?
No, I did not.
Did you lie to Detective Holtz and Detective Buckner yet again?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell these detectives that the first time you would have heard from Torgerson would have been by phone no earlier than 7 or 8 a.m. when the kids are usually getting up? Did you say that?
I don't remember.
If you did say that, would it have been a lie?
Yes, that would have been a lie.
Did you tell the detectives in this interview that Rich Hawkins went up north with Torgerson to the cabin? Did you tell them that?
I don't think so.
Did you ever discuss with the detectives up to this point in time Rich's involvement in the investigation, or don't you remember?
I did not.
You knew Rich went up to the cabin with Torgerson because Rich was in Torgerson's Jeep, right?
Yes,
You were in your van, right?
correct.
And the police by this time were asking you about Rich's activities that morning, correct?
I don't remember.
Did you say in this interview, Miss, that you've been talking about Stephanie Lowe's disappearance with your mom recently, and your mom reminded you about a conversation you had with Torgerson about where to put the boat up north? Do you remember that?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, there was something about Torgerson contacting you on the way back to Wausau from Wabeno about, hey, this is where I put the boat, is that okay? Something like that, right?
That sounds familiar.
And on this November 9, 2011, you were telling the detectives, by the way, you knew the detectives were over there to talk about Miss Lowe's disappearance, right?
Yes,
And what you told the detectives is, you know, Chris was concerned about where he put the boat near the shed. Remember that. Remember communicating that to the detectives?
it sounds familiar, yes.
Well, what was the purpose in telling that? Kind of an end around the truth? Instead of telling them what other things, what you really knew? Was that kind of gamesmanship?
It was probably another lie.
Well, no. Torgerson did call you and ask, is it okay to put the boat by the shed, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So if you told the police that, that wasn't a lie, right?
No, it was not.
You just didn't add that then he went and buried Stephanie Lowe.
No, I did not.
And do you remember the detective saying, or asking you, when Torgerson returned from the cabin, what he talked about? Do you remember being asked that question? Or them being concerned about what he talked about, what he did?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Did they want to know, did you tell the detectives at this time what time Torgerson got home?
I don't remember.
So do you remember telling detectives back on March 9, 2011? You don't remember when he got home. Does that sound familiar?
I think you're talking about, I think you said March, I think it's November.
November 9, 2011, we're still talking about. Did you tell the detectives, I don't remember when he got home?
I don't remember the
You-
statement.
Did you tell the detectives, did they want to know in this interview, why did the boat have to go up so early in the morning? Do you remember them being concerned about what that was about?
I do remember a portion of that.
And do you remember saying it was just about making room in the condo garage for Torgerson's Jeep? Remember that?
That sounds familiar.
That was a lie, right?
Yes, it was.
Did you, up to this point in time, November 9, 2011, you told the police during these I think we're on your sixth contact with law enforcement. You with me?
Yes.
You did tell the police throughout those first 6 contacts in 2011, you told them some true things, right? We've already talked about a few, right?
Yes.
One of them is that Torgerson likes to stay out all night, right?
Yes.
And when he decides he's going to do something, he does it right away, right?
Yes.
And then he was heavily into crack cocaine usage, right?
Yes.
And then during this interview, tell me if you remember, this is your first in-depth, law enforcement wanted to know about what you knew about Eric Mahomes, E, and Stephanie Lowe, right?
I don't remember exactly.
That happened at one point in time, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they asked me about them.
And we're still on the first in-depth interview, right?
Yes.
Told police about Stephanie Lowe and Eric Mahomes selling crack cocaine. You knew that, right?
Yes.
And just like you talked about with Mr. DeFore today, you said that Chris Torgerson and I would go over there from time to time with our kids who would play with Eric's kids, Eric Mahomes' kids, right?
Yes.
And you said, you talked about this Chris Torgerson renting some furniture in his name for Miss Lowe and Eric Mahomes, right?
Yes.
And you said you were uncomfortable that Stephanie Lowe put you down as a landlord on her rental application for Thomas Street, right?
That's right.
You told the police that you know Claudia Blake because you used to work with her at Colonial Manor, right?
Yes.
You told police in this November interview that Stephanie worked there for a while too, right?
I think she did in the kitchen.
Told the police that there were times when you felt bad for Stephanie Lowe, right?
That sounds familiar, yes.
Remember the topic then changing in this initial interview about whether you had anything to do with Chris Torgerson distributing drugs after Miss Lowe disappeared? Remember being asked about that?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
You remember saying, I had nothing to do with it. I was never involved.
With him doing what incident or what time frame are we talking about?
Okay, I'll move back. we're still on your first in-depth interview, right? Correct, ma'am? You with me?
Yes.
You remember at one point in time, this is now, we're into November of 2011, right?
Okay.
And police wanted to know whether Torgerson was, at that time, distributing drugs, right?
I think so.
And they said to you, what do you know about that? Right?
I don't remember.
Did there ever come a time when police asked you about Chris Torgerson selling drugs?
When he was selling meth, which was after, that was like in 2011 and 12.
We're on 11 right now, right? We're in the first in-depth interview, November 9th, 2011, right?
Okay.
Do you think around that time, tell me if you remember, it's 2012, so be it, police asked you about Torgerson selling, now you say meth, right?
Well, he was big into crack initially, and then he later got big into meth.
He was big into using crack, right?
Yes.
And then he started after that to sell methamphetamine, right?
Yes.
And police looked you in the eye and said, did you have any involvement in that? Remember?
Any involvement in the meth or the crack?
The meth. You're right, I should be clear. They asked you about whether you had any involvement in meth trafficking, right?
Yes.
What did you say?
I don't remember what I said at that interview.
Do you remember saying, nope, never involved?
That's quite possible.
Was that true or false?
Which interview are we talking about, counsel?
November 9, 2011 interview.
Because in reviewing the report, there's nothing in the report about discussion about selling meth in that report.
That would apparently be the basis for redirect examination.
I think counsel needs to have a good faith basis for asking a question, and it's not in the report. So unless he has a good faith basis for asking that question as it relates to that interview, it's inappropriate.
Good faith basis? I'll move on. I'll show you good faith basis. I'll show good faith basis. I'll try to make this as clear as I can. Let's get off November. Let's talk about history of the world. You with me?
I'm very bad at history with the world.
Let's talk about 2011 or 2012. How's that?
Okay.
I just narrowed it down. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Were you asked by law enforcement whether you were involved in Chris Torgerson selling methamphetamine?
Yes.
When asked, did you initially tell the truth?
I don't remember.
Were you involved?
When he would sell meth, I would ride with him to Minnesota for him to get product.
Do anything else?
I don't remember.
That's your testimony.
I don't remember if I did anything else. Like, I guess I don't know what you mean. Like, is there something specific you're asking me, or just in general? I didn't do meth, if that's the question you're asking.
What you remember is traveling with Mr. Torgerson to Minnesota to pick up methamphetamine, correct?
Yes.
And that's all you remember, doing to assist him in drug dealing with methamphetamine.
Oh, no, I apologize. I do remember also keeping money for him while he was in jail.
Okay. Other than traveling with him, keeping money for him, what kind of money? Profits, I'll guess?
Kind of, yeah.
Did you do anything else with that money?
He did let me pay 1 month of bills with it.
Did you do anything else with money in the drug trafficking business?
I would give it to, since he was in jail, I would give it to the individuals that he directed me towards.
So that they could do what?
Purchase more meth.
Did you ever deliver any methamphetamine?
No, I did not.
By deliver, I mean take some methamphetamine and bring it from one location to another. Did that ever happen?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. May we approach? For the record, the state has objected to that question.
Objection sustained.
Do you remember in this in-depth interview about which we've been talking about, that law enforcement broached the subject of Rebecca Torgerson?
No, I don't remember exactly.
Do you remember ever talking to law enforcement about the defendant's ex-wife?
Yes.
Remember ever indicating that she threatened the life of your daughter?
Yes.
And that she intimidated you through Facebook?
Yes.
And that she was concerned about intimidating you and, in fact, Chris Torgerson so she could get more placement time with her children, right? Is that what that was about?
I don't know what her threat to my daughter really was about. I don't think that had anything to do with the placement of her kids.
As a result, you deactivated, at least on the Facebook message, you deactivated the Facebook account, right?
Correct.
So it concerned you, whatever the purpose of the communication, it concerned you.
Yes.
I'm still on the in-depth interview, okay? The first one. Do you remember being asked the detectives, would you hesitate to tell us something Torgerson did? Remember being asked that?
I don't remember that exact question.
Did you say you would not lie for Torgerson on something big like this?
I do remember saying that.
You remember being asked, did he confide in you about Stephanie Lowe in any way, shape, or form? Remember being asked that question?
Yes.
What did you say?
No.
You remember saying, he doesn't trust me like that, right? Did you say that?
I don't remember that.
Did you remember saying, I never asked him if he killed Stephanie Lowe in this first in-depth interview?
Yes, I remember that.
Did you remember in this first interview, you get the sense that detectives aren't, this is the first in-depth interview, okay? Do you get the sense that they're not believing you?
Yes,
And you remember Detective Buckner tell you, you've got a lot to lose here. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Remember him reminding you, you've got children, a job, and a responsible lifestyle.
Yes,
These things you do remember.
yes.
And then they tell you that the progress of their investigation, and you say, I don't know what to think about that. I don't know how to process it right now. Remember that?
No, I do not remember that comment.
Did you say when they were talking to you about Torgerson being, during this in-depth interview, somebody they're really focusing on, you say, well, I too am finding out a lot more, or something to this effect. I'm also finding out a lot more about Torgerson. Remember saying that?
That does sound familiar.
That was kind of gamesmanship, based on your testimony today, if true, right?
Objection, argument.
Sustained.
Well, what was the purpose of saying, yeah, I'm finding out a lot more about Torgerson? What was the purpose of that?
I think secretly I wanted to tell, but I didn't know how to get out of the relationship because I was so scared of him.
Do you remember Detective Holt saying in this first interview, if we pull your cell phone records, will it show you were near the cabin or not? Remember her asking that?
Yes, I do remember.
What'd you say?
I said no.
True statement or lie?
That was a lie.
Remember they asked you to speculate on what might have happened between Torgerson and Stephanie Lowe? Remember them asking that?
I guess I'm going to object, Your Honor, to a question that has to speculate. It's not relevant.
I'm not asking her to speculate. I'm asking her if the detectives asked her to speculate what may have happened. Then I'm going to ask her what her answer is to that
I
question.
think that would be not relevant.
I'll move on, Your Honor.
Okay.
Did you say, Miss Wadinski, during this first in-depth interview, you have no idea what happened between Torgerson and Stephanie Lowe?
I don't remember my exact statement.
I'm not asking you about your exact statement. Did you tell the truth? Did you testify, did you tell these detectives in this interview consistent with your testimony today?
No, I did not.
Did you lie to them throughout this first in-depth interview?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember asking in this first in-depth interview if the detectives thought Torgerson and Miss Lowe had a sexual relationship? Did you ask that question?
I don't remember that question.
Do you remember the interview concluding with them asking you, will you continue to assist us, and you saying, yes, I will answer any additional questions? Correct? You remember that?
I believe so.
But at that point in time in November, did you have an intention to tell the truth?
An intention, or did I tell the truth? I've always had an intention to tell the truth. I am just too afraid of the defendant, or was just too, and still just too afraid of the defendant.
I understand that testimony. But my question is you said, I'll answer any questions in the future, right?
Yes.
Did you then think in your mind on that November 9th date, in the future, I'm going to tell the truth? Or do you just think, I'll just keep lying? That's my question.
I had thought that I would eventually tell the truth as soon as I knew that Chris was put away for good and could not harm me or my family.
But up to this point in time, separate and distinct from Kristopher Torgerson, up through the course of these 6 interviews, you never told police about what you did, right?
That is correct.
And isn't the reason why you didn't tell police about what you did because you didn't want to get in trouble with the law? Did that have anything to do with it?
That had part to do with it.
And that's because as you're going through these 6 interviews, you realize that you helped hide the corpse, right?
Yes.
You didn't want to tell the detective, right?
No.
Do you remember, you'll advise me if we keep going, Judge?
All right,
You'll advise me on breaks, et cetera?
break for lunch, and
Okay. Just want to make sure.
how much more time are you looking at here?
Pass into the afternoon.
Okay.
Do you remember the very next day after the interview being summoned back to Wausau Police Department where you met for the first time Lieutenant William Kolb?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, we're still in November. This would have been about 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of you to identify a photo of a guy named Daryl Pearson. Ring a bell?
Yes.
All right. And you understood during this interview that Lieutenant Kolb was trying to find this Rich Hawkins guy, right?
Yes.
And it was clear that law enforcement understood that the connect between Hawkins and Torgerson was this fella, their mutual childhood friend in Alexander City, Alabama, named Daryl Pearson, right?
Yes.
Because you met Pearson yourself when you went down to Alabama months before Miss Lowe went disappeared, right?
Yes.
And so you see, did you not, in the evening of that November 10, 2011, that Lieutenant Kolb is right on it. He's going to find Rich Hawkins because he's found his close friend Daryl Pearson in Alabama, right?
Correct.
And Lieutenant Kolb shows you a picture of Daryl Pearson and says, yup, this is the guy, you say. This is the guy who we met Rich through, right?
Yes.
You say, this is who we met in the summer of 2010, who owned property where Rich lived, right?
Yes. Daryl owned the property, but Rich lived there, yes.
You knew then that police were trying to find Rich to help unravel what happened to Miss Lowe, correct?
Yes.
Did you tell Lieutenant Kolb in that evening interview on November 10, 2011, what you knew?
No, I did not.
You were aware that all these interviews at the Wausau Police Department were video recorded, right?
Yes.
Remember 4 days later, being brought back by, requested to come back by Lieutenant Kolb to identify some more, to identify additional photos, this time surveillance photos of the breakaway bar. Remember that?
Yes.
And remember, we're still into this very busy month for you, November 2011, where police are asking you to come speak to them multiple times, right?
Yes.
This meeting with Lieutenant Kolb about the breakaway surveillance is your 5th November interview, right? In the space of 2 weeks.
I'm not keeping count, but that sounds correct.
You're showing a surveillance photo of the breakaway tavern on Friday night, October 9th, 2010. Remember that?
I don't remember the footage.
Do you remember that this was the time, the first time that you could point to a photo of Rich and say, "That's Rich from Alabama"?
Yes.
All right. Does that ring a bell that it was Rich leaving Breakaway, closely followed by Torgerson on the night of October 9? Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
So you see that Lieutenant Kolb is working, he looks like he's working pretty hard to unravel what happened to Stephanie Lowe, right?
Yes.
Did you help him, Lieutenant Kolb?
Are you asking me if I said the truth?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
And for the record, and I think, I'm going to object to that last question and answer, just as it relates to that, because it's vague as to the time. I'd ask counsel to, if he's talking about in that interview on November 14th, then that's fine. But otherwise, I think it's vague as to time.
I'll rephrase. So far, you and I have gone interview by interview and discussed them, correct?
As far as I know, I don't know how many interviews there were.
I didn't ask you how many. I'm saying you and I are talking, we're going through each interview you had, each communication with law enforcement, right?
I think so.
And what we were just talking about is November 14th, 2011, when you identified Rich Hawkins in a surveillance photo, right?
Yes.
I just am going to continue to talk about November 14th, 2011, as we have with the other 7 dates we previously talked about, okay?
Okay.
All right. Lieutenant Kolb, he's working hard to resolve the Stephanie Lowe case, isn't he?
Yes.
Sat across the table from him looking at these surveillance photos and identifying Pearson and identifying Hawkins, right?
Correct.
You didn't tell him what you knew, what you testified in front of this jury, right?
Correct.
You didn't tell him that you knew that Stephanie Lowe was in Lavina, did you?
No, I did not.
And you didn't tell him on that date because you were afraid it was going to get you in trouble, correct?
I was afraid that Chris was going to come after me.
You had no concern about whether you committed a crime.
I was concerned I committed a crime. I was more fearful for my life and my life of my children.
Did you consider the crime you committed a serious crime?
Yes, very serious.
And do you remember Lieutenant Kolb asking you if police can come by your Charles Street residence that evening to look at Torgerson's clothes that you may still have at that house? Do you remember that?
Yes.
You agreed to that, correct?
Yes.
Lieutenant Kolb and Detective Holtz come to your residence and collect a whole bunch of jeans, pairs of jeans, correct?
Yes.
You wanted to look around the rest of the house, and you actually signed yet another consent form, much like you signed with regards to the boat 8 months earlier, for them to look through the rest of your Charles Street residence, right?
Yes.
And you knew that those detectives in the evening of November 14, 2011, were still working to solve what happened to Miss Lowe, correct?
Yes.
And you knew where she was buried, correct?
I did not know the exact location of where she was buried.
You knew that her corpse was hidden near your mother's cabin, correct?
That I did know.
And according to your testimony today, at least, you knew how she met her death, correct?
Yes.
So as you were walking around with Lieutenant Kolb and Detective Holtz in your home, allowing them to search it, did you disclose any of that information?
No, I did not.
Remember about a month later, 4 days before Christmas, December 21, 2011, coming back to the Wausau Police Department, 4 days before Christmas.
I don't remember that specific date.
Do you remember a period of time before what would be your daughter's, second Christmas? Going into the Wausau Police Department to talk again about this Stephanie Lowe case?
It sounds correct.
Some of these quick trip photos that Mr. DeFore referenced in your direct examination this morning. Remember on this Christmas time 2011 evening interview, Detective Buckner and Holtz showing you those surveillance and asking you to identify the persons in them? You remember that?
I do not remember that interaction.
Do you remember during the interaction a discussion about whether Kristopher Torgerson on the early morning hours of October 10, 2010, at some point in time switched vehicles from your van to his Jeep? You remember being asked about that?
It sounds familiar.
And you remember saying, essentially, you don't know when that happened, right?
Yes.
Let's jump forward to today, March 20th, 2017. Do you know what time he switched vehicles from your van to the Jeep?
No, I do not.
So actually, when you said back 5.5 years ago about, I don't know when he switched cars, that was the truth, right?
Yes.
But then you said, I don't remember him ever coming home. Remember that?
I do remember that.
That we know is a lie, right?
Yep, that's a lie. Yes.
And then you remember, this is about the first, not about, this is the first time that it looks like law enforcement got in their possession, as you're sitting across the table from them, they've got some cell phone records. Remember? Remember that? This is the time those rear their ugly heads.
I don't remember the specifics.
How about if you don't remember this date, you remember eventually Detective Holt saying, we got some cell phone records we got to ask you about. Remember that?
That sounds familiar,
You
yes.
just really don't remember the date, right?
Right.
You said you look like you need some water. Is that?
I think I'm almost out. Oh no, I'm good.
And do you remember the detective saying, we'd like to know what those texts were about, the content of them? Remember that? I'm still on December 21, 2011.
Yes.
All right. And you said they were about two things. Tell me if I got this right. You were getting mad at him for not coming home, right?
Correct.
And you were giving him directions to the cabin, right?
I don't remember that specific statement.
If you said that, that would have been a lie.
Yes.
Remember the police say, do these phone records jog your memory as to more of what was going on? And you said no. You remember that?
Yes.
True or false?
False.
I mean, really up to this point in time, it wasn't your plan to just continue to lie and obstruct and hopefully they will stop questioning you. It really wasn't that what was going on.
No, it was not. I was secretly hoping, like I mentioned before, that somehow I could get out of this terrible situation that I put myself into. and that Chris would not be able to harm me or my family.
Okay. Okay. And you asked, remember, at the close of the interview, is there anything you want to add? Remember that? Been talking about this Christmas time interview.
No, I don't remember that.
So you don't remember saying, yeah, there's one thing, and that's that Rebecca Torgerson is a vengeful person and may have made things up about Torgerson. Did you report that?
That's possible.
Do you remember actually Detective Holtz agreeing with that, saying, yeah, I agree? Something to that effect? She affirmed that?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you add that Rebecca will say things to authorities out of spite and to further things she wants, like things through social services? Remember saying that?
That sounds accurate.
Do you remember being asked that day, did you remember being asked at this Christmas time interview, did you see the boat yourself with your own eyes on October 10th? Remember being asked that?
I don't.
So if you would have said no, that would have been a lie, right?
Correct.
But you don't remember.
I don't.
Don't remember what you told law enforcement about what I trust was the most dramatic event in your life.
That's correct, yes.
Christmas passes, New Year comes, we're into 2012, the law enforcement's going to keep questioning you, right? You remember that.
Yes.
In 2011, if my count's right, you've been interviewed, spoke with law enforcement on nine different occasions, right?
I don't know the number, but I spoke with them on many occasions.
For a year, calendar year, on let's say 9 occasions, you lied.
Yes, I did.
Did you tell the truth in the next calendar year, 2012, about what happened to Stephanie Lowe?
Yes.
Let's see. Do you remember you weren't communicated with by law enforcement until about the middle of the year, May 2012, when Lieutenant Kolb and Detective Holtz made contact with you at your Charles Street residence in Schofield. Remember that? We're into 2012 now.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And remember, maybe this will, and to further jar your memory, this was the day that the police wanted to see if you had at Charles Street the black T-shirt that we saw depicted earlier today, right?
Yes.
The black T-shirt that has written on it, "Stop Snitching," right?
Yes.
And do you remember when police got there, they said, "You changed your phone number, we couldn't find you." Remember that?
Yes.
When you changed your phone number, did you tell the police who were investigating the Stephanie Lowe disappearance that since December 21, I changed it, this is where you can find me?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Why'd you change your phone number?
Objection, no.
Was it so law enforcement, let me ask you this, did you change your phone number so law enforcement?
I'd like to answer the question that was asked her.
Okay, would Madam Reporter like to read back my first question? That was objected to and then not.
why did you change your phone number?
I'll rely on the
Yes.
court report.
Question, why did you change your phone number? Objection, never mind.
With objections withdrawn.
Question is before you, madam.
So why did I change my phone number? Yes, I would have to say it was because I was trying to not have contact with the authorities.
And in fact, when they arrived at your residence that night, you were none too happy, were you?
I don't remember what my demeanor was at that time.
Do you remember that Miss Wadinski was just preparing to leave her residence and stated she only had a short period of time? Remember saying that?
I don't remember saying that.
Remember stated you haven't heard anything new from Torgerson and doesn't know what to believe regarding his possible involvement in this case. You remember saying that?
That sounds correct.
That was a lie.
Yes, it was a lie.
In addition to this business about the T-shirt, well, let's just talk about that T-shirt. They met you, the detectives, actually outside your residence, right?
Yes.
And they said, we'd like this black T-shirt, see if you have it, right?
Yes.
So you left them there, and you ran in and came back out and said, I don't have it, right? Or did they come in? If you remember.
I don't remember.
Did you have the T-shirt?
I don't think so, no.
And do you remember the law enforcement also wanting some bank account information from you at that time? Like what bank were you utilizing in October 2010?
Yes.
And you provided that information, right?
Yes.
Did you tell them at that time that, hey, within that banking information, you're going to find I've got some gas in Weston en route to escorting the body of Stephanie Lowe that you're trying to, the mystery about what you're trying to solve. Did you tell them that?
No, I did not.
In fact, what you said is Torgerson may have used your debit card, right?
That sounds like, yes, that's accurate.
Law enforcement asked for your new cell phone, right?
I believe so.
And you said you didn't really want to provide it because you're just trying to get on with your life, right?
That sounds accurate.
But law enforcement persisted and they got your cell, right?
Correct.
So you didn't reveal on that date the truth, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, do you remember not being interviewed for the rest of 2012 and not being interviewed until February 12, 2013? Remember that?
I think so.
And wasn't it in 2013 when you first started to provide some information about you escorting Torgerson to the cabin? Wasn't that like February 2013?
I don't remember the specific date, but that sounds accurate.
So earlier you thought you started to tell the truth in 2012. The truth is that in the calendar years 2011 and 2012, you didn't.
I didn't. That was inaccurate.
In 2012, mid-2012, I showed February 12, 2013. Let's see if this jars your memory. You get a visit at Charles Street from Detective Holtz and somebody new, a federal law enforcement agent. Remember that?
Yes.
A fellow by the name of Bill Fulton, F-U-L-T-O-N, right?
Correct.
Does that ring a bell now? You with me? February 12, 2013?
Yes.
Okay. It's going to end up being a marathon night for you, isn't it? Remember? A really late night.
Yes.
All right. So you're confident we're talking about the same date?
Yes.
All right. when Detective Holtz and Agent Fulton arrive, your mom is there with your, I think at that time, about 2 3/4-year-old child. K. I'm not going to say her name. Her first initial's K, right?
Yes.
And Special Agent Fulton, Detective Holtz, you, your mother, and I think your child on your mother's lap are all assembled at a dining room table, right?
That is correct.
I think you even got your daughter on a booster chair, right?
I don't remember that.
And Detective Holtz says, we've got more cell phone records than we had when we last spoke with you. Remember that? The cell phone records get brought up again.
Yes.
And what's going to happen is this is going to be yet another in-depth interview, right?
Correct.
And when Detective Holtz says, look, we've got some more cell phone records, you said, I don't remember Torgerson ever coming home to Fergie Street that evening, right?
I don't remember that exact comment from that conversation.
And do you remember anything close to it? Did you tell the truth in the beginning of the meeting about Torgerson coming home to Fergie in the middle of the night or no?
No, I did not.
Okay. And do you remember saying something to the effect of, look, Torgerson called me for directions to the cabin. I didn't escort him.
I don't remember saying that exact comment.
Anything about, did you tell them in the beginning of the interview when they asked you that you escorted Torgerson up there?
No, I did not. Not at the beginning of the interview.
Right, and Torgerson didn't know how to get up there, right?
No.
So if you didn't escort him, law enforcement want to know, well, how do you get up there, right?
I don't know if that's what they asked me.
Did you ever discuss how Torgerson got directions to the cabin?
On this interview?
Sure.
At the beginning of the interview or at the end of the interview?
Beginning.
I don't think so.
How about on other dates? Would you tell them how Torgerson figured out how to get there?
After this interview?
Other dates before this interview?
I think I told them that I gave him directions. Isn't that what you had said previously?
You told them that how many times?
I don't know the number.
Were all of them true or lies?
Lies.
You have up to this point in time told law enforcement you didn't leave Fergie Street, Torgerson's apartment, the morning of October 10th, right? Up to this point in time.
Correct.
In the beginning of this interview, when Detective Holt said, we've got some cell phone records now, you stuck with that, right?
Yes.
Said you stayed home all night with the child, K, Torgerson's kids, K and R, you with me?
Yep.
And your daughter, K, right?
Yes.
Then you even added your son, T, right?
I did.
So you brought him into the mix.
Yes.
He was never even at your apartment, that apartment that night, was he?
No, he was not.
And then Detective Holtz, she didn't tell you what was in those cell phone records yet, did she?
No.
So she asked you, hey, do you know anybody in Anaco? Remember that?
I believe so.
And you said, yeah, I know a few people there. I think you said Junior and Jay or something.
Oh, yes.
But then you said, but I didn't go there that morning, right?
Yes, I did.
Detective Holtz said, what did you do that morning? And you said, I stayed with his kids. Who else would stay with his kids, you asked, right? Remember that?
I don't know if that's the exact comment, but
Something close?
Yes.
You're just fighting to tell you're just fighting them on the truth, weren't you? When you said, I stayed with his kids, and then asked who else would stay with his kids. If you said something like that, you were battling them. You weren't willing to give up the truth, right?
At that point, yes.
And then you remember saying, well, I could have gone to the grocery store, Walmart in Anago, right?
Yes.
I could have been driving to help Kay take a nap, remember?
Yes.
I mean, you said, sometimes I'll even go to the Walmart in Stevens Point. I just like to drive, right?
I don't believe I said I just like to drive, but I said that I like to go to other, like, larger stores like that because they have a different selection of things.
But you knew that that's not what you did that morning.
That's right. That was an incorrect statement and a lie.
Detective Holt says, the phone records show you're in Anago. She confronts you with that, right?
Yes.
Your mother's there, right?
Yes.
And you and your mother start telling Detective Holt, well, sometimes Jackie Miller, the grandmother of K&T, pick up the kids in Anago, right? Remember that?
I don't remember that statement, but that did happen at times.
And that was your response to Detective Holtz about your cell phone record showing you in Anago on the morning Miss Lowe disappeared. Your response was, maybe I was there to do a kid transfer with Miss Miller, right?
That
Remember?
sounds accurate.
Jackie Miller is the mother of Rebecca Torgerson, correct?
Yes.
Detective Holt says, keeps pressing you about whether you were in Anago, what were you doing, and you remember saying, I don't know, I really don't know. Remember?
I don't remember the exact comments, but I'm sure I was telling her I didn't know.
You were
Couldn't
lying.
remember. Yes, I was lying.
Into, this is the 10th, I think, interview, right?
I am not keeping count, but I did lie.
And then this Fulton guy, this Special Agent Fulton, he's there and talks to you about, he says, I'm looking at the meth trafficking we talked about earlier. That's why he was there, right?
Yes.
Did that concern you that he was there? Did that get you nervous?
Both of them being there made me nervous.
Well, Special Agent Fulton made you nervous because you knew you had some guilt about meth trafficking, right?
Yes.
And Jennifer Holtz made you nervous because you knew you had guilt about hiding a corpse, right?
Yes.
Well, you weren't in a very good position, were you, at that moment?
No.
Now we got a new case they're looking at, right?
Yes.
That, both of which, involve Torgerson, right?
Yes.
Then you remember that moment. You looked at Detective Holtz and said, so then what do I need to do? Remember that?
No, I don't remember that comment.
Then you tell me, as a federal agent, and by the way, what organization was Fulton, Mr. Special Agent Fulton from?
From a drug task force? I don't know the specific agency.
State or federal agency?
I believe it was federal.
Serious stuff, huh?
Yes.
So he's there challenging you, right? Correct?
He wasn't challenging me. He was asking me questions.
About drug trafficking.
Yes.
And Detective Holtz is there, right?
Yes.
And you knew you weren't in Anago for any Walmart shopping.
Yes.
You knew you were in Anago because it was en route to helping hide a corpse, right?
Yes.
En route back, right?
Yes.
So as these two law enforcement officers are sitting at your dining room table, 2 3/4-year-old daughter in the area and your mother, what do you decide to do?
I told the truth.
Well, you certainly said something different than you've said for the past 2 years, right?
Yes.
So how do you communicate that to the agents, that you're going to do something different? You don't remember saying, what do I need to do?
I remember saying, okay, I'll tell you everything. I don't remember saying, what do I need to do? And I also remember saying, can you promise me that he won't get out?
And then do you also remember saying, you know, I told my sister I felt bad that I couldn't remember more up to this point in time, but my daughter was sick. Remember that?
No, I don't remember that statement.
Do you remember asking, can you guys obtain my text messages from my phone? Remember that?
No, I don't remember asking that.
Do you remember the agent saying around this time, I think Fulton said, the situation does not look good for you, given the facts the detectives have gathered for the last 2 weeks. Remember that?
Something similar to that, yes.
And the theme came back, you've got a lot to lose, a beautiful family, right?
Yes.
But do you remember, even after those comments, you said, I don't remember anything for that day. I don't remember. Remember, you still weren't quite there?
I don't remember that comment.
Okay.
We're going to take a break when he's done cross-examining on the February 12th, 2013 interview.
Okay.
So when you're done with that, then we'll take a break.
Okay. And I'm getting close to the end.
Okay.
Okay? Do you remember Detective Holtz on this evening at your residence saying, we can work through this, okay? We can do this together. Remember something like that?
I do not remember a specific comment like that.
I didn't ask for a specific comment like that. Anything even close to that. How's that?
I don't remember anything close to that. I was very upset and worried and scared.
Do you remember saying, I just can't get my kids taken away? I can't? Remember you were certainly concerned about that.
Yes.
Do you remember what the response was? Was the response, they're coming, you help hide a corpse, you're losing them. Is that what they said to you?
No, they did not.
Yeah, they said, Detective Holt said, it's not our intention. Right? Save your kids. Remember that?
I don't remember that specific comment.
What did law enforcement say to you when you expressed concern about your kids being taken away? What did they say? That is not something you remember?
I do not remember exactly what they told me. I was too upset. I was worried that if he got out again, because he was currently in jail, that he would come after me and my kids. So I was more scared out of my wits than anything else. And I don't remember the specific comments.
Did you say, finally, I probably went to show him where 64 was. I did not help him. I did not help him. I did not help him. Did you say that?
I don't remember those specific comments.
Do you remember Detective Holt saying, because we're doing this, okay? If we're going to do this, we're going to do this together, and I'm going to help you. But we need it all, okay? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that comment.
Anything close?
No.
Did Detective Holtz or Agent Fulton say to you that they take you into custody that night? Did you go to jail?
No, I did not.
Did you go home and sleep in your bed?
Yes, I did.
Was your child taken away from you?
No, she was not.
Was your liberty restrained at all?
No,
Did you get a traffic ticket?
no,
Did you remember expressing concern about whether there will be consequences for you helping Torgerson with drug trafficking? Do you remember that?
I don't remember it being on that same day.
Do you remember having a concern that evening about your job?
I do
Losing-
remember having a concern about losing my job.
That you do remember.
Yes.
Not losing your kids, but your job.
I was worried for the life of my kids.
Do you remember when you were worried about losing your job, Detective Holt saying, "No, I don't foresee that happening at all. We can certainly discuss that more." Remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember you saying at the end, "Am I going to be able to come back to my daughter?" You kind of remember that or anything close to that?
That I remember.
What did Detective Holt say?
I don't remember what her response was.
Did she say, "No, you're going to jail"?
No, I remember her saying, "No, you're going to go home tonight."
Now, that interview at your residence at the dining room table with the federal agent is going to go on for roughly an hour and a half, right?
I don't know the time frame.
Okay? But your interactions with law enforcement on that February 13th, 2012, February 12th, 2013 date isn't going to end because law enforcement says, "We got to take you into the police station and we got to talk more. Let's get some detail," right?
Correct.
And that's going to be about another 3.5-hour marathon session, right?
I don't remember the time.
Pretty late. You got home after 11:30, remember?
Yes, it was late.
And so, Judge, that is the second half of that interview. This would be, if you're of a mind, a good stopping point because that next interview was lengthy on that same day.
Okay, we'll take a lunch break, check back again at 1 o'clock. Okay, we'll take a break till 1 o'clock.
Yeah.